I call the meeting to order. All right. Stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. So the reason for the meeting is to clarify the COVID plan. All right, Patty, do you want to
Sure, I can
kind of just
walk us through this. Yeah.
Yeah, the things that have been
Oh,
changed.
we need to do the remote member thing.
Oh, that's right. Thank you.
Thank you.
I knew that and we were already forgot. Heather, I know you're remote, so if you don't mind stating your name, your location, and the reason that you're not here.
Hi, Heather Ingham, Newton Rep. I am in my home. I am alone. The child may come in, and I am home due to medical.
Perfect. All right. And all votes tonight will be taken via roll call because she is remote. So Patty, if you would like to explain.
Thanks. So I had sent along to the board the revised COVID plan to update some of the wording to match what was a motion made at the last meeting by Jamie to remove the masking parameters and to move it to mask optional. And we wanted to make sure that that wording for the motion was correctly stated, because what we don't want to have is have no plan in place, because by having no plan in place, that really violates the program assurances for our ESSER 3 funding, which would possibly jeopardize the millions of dollars we're getting through that. So I did email out the plan. As soon as the board agrees with it or whatever changes, I will put that up on the website. But basically what this plan does now is it's gone down from 6 pages to 4 pages. One of the pages is the cover page. So it's really 3 pages of information. And what we've essentially done is gone through and taken out in the plan any of the mention where masks are required and changed it to masks are recommended but optional. So just going through the sections quickly, communication is the same. Parents have to update the contact information if something happens. Make sure to screen your children, student health screening, make sure you screen your children at home. Isolation, we have to follow the isolation measures that Department of Health and Human Services has adopted. And those are linked further into the plan. Student transportation remains the same. Classrooms and instructional spaces is the same. Masking for all staff and students. Masks are recommended but optional unless adhering to isolation and quarantine guidelines. And what that means is when the Department of Health and Human Services adopted the Center for Disease Control isolation and quarantine guidelines, what they're saying is you might contract COVID and you have to be isolated at home for 5 days. You can stop the isolation on day 6 if you agree to mask for 5 more days. If you're unwilling to mask for 5 days, you stay isolated at home for 10 days. So that has not changed, even though just before this meeting, a technical advisory was released stating that universal masking in schools is no longer allowed. So that was way back when we were saying everybody's wearing a mask regardless of your situation. That is no longer allowed according to the technical advisory. So the move in this plan to say masks are recommended but optional unless you're under quarantine, because we don't want illness to spread. So visitors and events, mask recommended but optional. Same thing for school-wide events. Field trips, we said that they may be limited. Building use by outside groups may be limited. Hygiene and cleaning stayed the same. Social emotional needs stayed the same. Athletics and after-school activities stayed the same, because there's a lot more to that than just illness. Sometimes they can't get a team together, so the athletic director will take care of that. Criteria for ending isolation stays the same. I moved the section on how to stay healthy up, so that shortened the plan a little bit. On page 4, this is the same thing that we had in the other plan, basically monitor for symptoms, what to do if your child is sick. And then there's that little table about when to isolate, when to quarantine, those kinds of things. And if anything changes in the plan, we will change, or if anything changes outside, we will change the plan. So pretty short and sweet. I don't think there's anything in there that's Should be a surprise.
Just,
Okay, don't we need a motion first, then we'll discuss?
no,
No?
you can do it either
Motion
way.
to approve?
You can go either.
Oh, I just thought you had to have a motion before we could discuss.
I think, I know we usually allow questions.
I know, we always do, but I just figured we'd
So I
get
don't-
this over with.
We can, however we want to do it.
I just want to make 2 points. The question of busing came up in the last discussion. I did get information from Ms. Lamperon that night and from Matt also immediately after, directing me to Department of Transportation rules. And it is very clear in those rules that you don't have the option of saying anything with busing. So busings would still be mandatory. It did say that when Dr. Haynes mentioned that field trips may be limited or usage may be limited. It used to say will be
Right.
limited. So it just says may be limited now. Because there'll be many different things. But Dr. Haynes, I didn't see, and I thought I had before, so maybe I'm just not seeing it now and I'm looking at it. But it doesn't specifically say that sports are not requiring masking either. I thought I had seen that before.
So,
I think
saw it
that's
somewhere.
covered under events, because it also
Right.
says including but not limited to.
There it
athletic
is, because I
events,
thought I
concerts,
saw it. I
Yep.
kept on looking for it under
Houses.
masking. I'm like,
Yeah.
God, I thought I
what
saw that
what I
there."
ended up doing to try to shorten this up is I moved, if you compare the plan side to side, I moved some of the rows around to try to shorten up where they were.
I see it now.
So some of the stuff has been moved around, but it's there.
And just to clarify what Dr. Haynes had said, the motion that was made when we went back and looked at it said, replace the current plan with mask optional, rather than replace the masking requirements in the current plan with mask optional. And that's why we're here tonight, is to just fix that. Those are
And
my
thank you. I think you
comments.
did a great job on this.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Very clear.
Thank
And I
you.
know You sent a lot of pointers along. You guys worked great together.
Yep,
and I
no,
appreciate
it's-
that. This is, I think it's super clean and super clear. So great. Yes.
So the plan that we had in place prior to last week, part of the purpose of that plan was to outline a structure, give us a structure that we would follow in order to keep kids in school and have some way to respond if, we have cases increase to a certain level. And we had like a brief discussion saying, oh, well, if that happens, we can just call an emergency meeting. It was kind of very squishy and not very well defined. And I'm wondering does this plan allow us to be responsive and keep our kids in school if we have some sort of outbreak, which of course we all hope we're not going to have. But if we do, what does this plan say how are we going to respond according to this plan?
So there's a couple of things in there, and we did make some calls to the Department of Health and Human Services last week to figure out, what can we do? And now with the technical advisory that came out that said that you can't just move everybody into mask required. What we can do with this plan, and that's really what's on page 4 in that table as far as quarantine and isolation guidelines, making sure that folks adhere to that. So we're still going to need parents to report to us, because we are still required by Department of Health and Human Services to say when we've got cases, because God forbid we get some kind of a wacky variant shows up in New Hampshire, and that's how they're going to know, because we're going to be reporting. We've got 5 today. We've got 17 tomorrow. Now we've got 83 on, Friday. There's a problem here. So we're still required to report that. So we still need our parents to tell us, if the children are home because of COVID symptoms or if they have COVID. And we could always, depending on how things go in the state, and the technical advisory sort of limits this now. Earlier today, I would have said we could always go back to the old plan that we had. But now that the technical advisory is saying we can't universally mask, I think we've got to be careful how we interpret that. I think we can have conversations. We can talk about what's happening. We can talk about, number of cases, but I don't think, and Matt, with your legal background, I don't think that advisory allows us to go right back to all of 3rd grade in masks or all of Bakey in masks. I think we really have to work with Department of Health and Human Services, because they did say to us, there is a state law that talks about tracking quarantine numbers and things like that. And they could come in, and let's say it was some other kind of an outbreak. It could be an outbreak of Legionnaire's disease, and they would come in and help guide the facility through that. So we can work with them, but I don't think with that new technical advisory that we can just snap back and say all of Bakey or whoever in masking anymore.
Agreed. And I also want to say that this is a technical advisory that only came out a couple of hours ago, and we're all trying to figure out how to live within it. And if we do have another major outbreak, I would expect the state to do an update or come back with some sort of guidance for us to move around in.
But we still have some, I don't know, safety hatches with somebody is sick, they come back after 5 days. They're still masked for 5 days or they can't be with us. Or they can stay home for the full 10 days. So there are still some things in there, but I think the conventional wisdom that brought about the technical advisory is that this is sort of on the downslope and we're heading into calmer waters, hopefully.
I have another, unless somebody else wants. So, and I just also wanted to point out, because the State Board of Ed rule came out last Friday after we met. So I don't know if that's been put out into the public arena really either, but we're kind of limited on being able to go remote either. We pretty much aren't allowed to go remote because of COVID now.
Right.
after that. So we're
Right. JL
squeezed from
Carr.
both ends,
Right.
if you ask.
JL Carr met and Jamie and I were discussing this before the meeting started. JL Carr met on the 18th, which I believe was Friday,
Mhm.
and said that remote learning cannot be used for COVID reasons anymore. Any kind of related COVID, because you've got an outbreak, because you can't staff your buildings, you could still go to remote for inclement weather. You could still go have a remote option if parents request it. But you're right. We are sort of now hemmed in a little bit on what we can do. So.
I got a question. It's kind of an aside. If a school can't staff its buildings, and maybe Matt, you can answer this, but there's contracts with the teachers union, how does that work? That they, that they're supposed to be in school if if they have a sick day or
Well, if they're out,
medical leave,
if they're out sick on a medical leave, we still have to pay for them.
right?
But we're still going to try to get substitute teachers in to try to provide that learning.
Mhm.
We do have we have discussed some contingency plans in widespread outages and still try to provide that learning. But those are just contingency plans, and hopefully we don't pull those out.
Right.
What we had to do last year and the beginning of this year.
Yeah.
Can I make a motion to approve?
Yes.
Second.
All right. Roll call vote. Pete,
Aye.
Jamie,
Aye.
Tammy,
Yes.
Jim,
Yes.
myself, yes. Maura,
Yes.
Heather,
Yes, but basically due to the new rule that came out today.
Same here.
all right. Motion carries. Since there is no public here, I think we can forego public comment. Next Sanborn Regional School Board meeting will be held on Wednesday, March 16th, 2022 at 6 p.m. in the library at Sanborn Regional High School. Second voting session of the annual school district meeting will be held on Tuesday, March 8th, 2022 from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. in the Swayze Gymnasium on the seminary campus for Kingston voters, and at 8D Merrimack Road, the fire rescue station for Newton voters.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
for March 16th,
Yes.
I'll need to have a remote hookup, please, if you can make note of that.
Oh, okay.
St. Patrick's Eve.
All right. So noted. All right. Meeting is adjourned.